Hi, it's Craig the Spa Service Tech. I'm sitting in my truck here waiting out some rain that's coming down. And I'm going to take this time and talk about something that's gotten a really bad rap with Hot Spring in the last several years, and that is the LED main light lens on their High Life series spas. And I actually ran into somebody who recently said that light lens was a poor design. It's failing left and right, and we are always replacing these things, and there's such a poor design. They're going on. And I've been in the business long enough to remember when this light lens was new, and I know the progression of this lens and the issues that it had over the years. And it's not a bad design. It's a lot of assembly error or operator error, and I'm going to go over that a little bit. So here's the light lens. It consists of this clear lens, and it has this red silicone O-ring, and this threads onto this wall fitting. This wall fitting is epoxied to the shell, and when you thread this lens onto there, it compresses that O-ring. Once it's compressed, there's a decorative bezel that goes around here. That decorative bezel causes no watertight qualities. As I said, it's strictly a decorative bezel, so tightening that doesn't help your lens stop leaking. When they came out with this lens in 2000, late 2000, it had no problems. I can count on one hand how many of these I've had replaced from 2000 to 2012. And I have a theory on that. I believe that they took the time to put a little bit of slippery O-ring lube on here when they assembled these at the factory. As I said, I never saw a single lick of problem with these things failing 2000 to 2012. The exception to that rule would be the people who are running a chlorine tablet floater, and of course with the set it and forget it mentality with the floater, their alkalinity and pH was probably bottomed out, so there was nothing left to these red silicone O-rings. They were faded to a pinkish white and crumbling apart, but your light lens was the least of your problems if you were doing that. So in 2013 we saw our first hiccup with these light lenses. What was happening is they were over tightening them at the factory, so this wall fitting would get a little crack in them. And the first time I saw that, I was kind of taken back. It was like, oh, this is leaking. So I put a new lens O-ring kit on there, and I put it on, and it's still leaking. Well, then I would take this and I'd put it on there a little bit tighter, and it would leak even more. So then I'd drain the tub, inspect it, and there would be a little hairline crack in here. And eventually I would get like a pen light, and I would shine it around these things, and it would really illuminate any crack. But that was only a problem like around 2013, 2014, where we saw that issue. 2015, 16 was fine. 2017, we saw the reemergence of a couple of cracks. No big deal. I mean, there's a mold seam right there, but a crack you could really tell with the pen light. So what happened with these things around 2018, 2019 to current is, this is what happened. They would tighten these things at the factory, and they were not putting any sort of slippery O-ring lube on them. So when they were tightening them, the O-ring would pinch and bind, and I know this is what happened because every one of these that failed, I would lay the O-ring on a table and I'd study it, and the O-ring would be really wide and flattened out on one side, but then you go to the other side and the O-ring is really skinny and still round, because the O-ring, as they were tightening it with no lube, it would bunch up thick over here and it would stretch it thin over here. So now you didn't have an even 360 compression around that O-ring. It was all bunched up over here and stretched thin over there, and it was a huge problem. And ever since the early days of me replacing these things, I would always take a little bit of magic lube and just put a little smear on there, so when I tightened this up, it would slip and it wouldn't pinch and bind and bunch up. And the reason I do that is the same reason you put a little bit of motor oil on the O-ring of an oil filter when you're doing an oil change in your car. When you screw that oil filter on and you have that oil on there, it's going to slip and get an even compression on that O-ring. If you don't put any oil on that O-ring is going to pinch, and it's going to grab, and it's going to bind, and you're going to mess that thing up. So that is the story with these light lenses over the years. We had no problems the first dozen years. We had some cracking problems at midpoint on these, and then as of late we're just having these O-rings that are all wonky, oblong, messed up, distorted, because they're twisting these things down and they're not putting any lube on there, and that's a shame too, because I love this light lens. See how it domes out? That means it doesn't just shine light forward, it shines light sideways and even shines light a little bit back, so the wall that this is attached to is not in the shadows. And I like this light lens. I'm sad to see it have, it's gone for 2023 forward. And what really cheeses me off is the fact that this light lens design is getting a bad rap by people who just don't understand why it fails, why it's failing a lot even lately. We have to stock a lot of these light lens kits because we're replacing these all the time, and I think it's just due to bad assembly. So aside from user error, chemistry, and assembly error, this light lens was a good design, and that is my video. If you go to replace these, remember, put a little bit of slippery O-ring lube on them, so when you tighten them up, it slips, so you got a nice, even, full 360 compression on the entire O-ring, because it actually slips as you turn it and compress it. This is Craig the Spa Tech. Catch you later.